What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for April 19th, 2021. Gonna start out with an apology. I just could not get the video out last week. My real-life job is just taking over way too much of my time and is unfortunately becoming like a full-time job when this was supposed to be my kind of number one priority, making content, YouTube videos, streaming on Twitch, and that was supposed to take a back seat, and just people are flowing into Florida and business needs are so high right now and we just can't handle it. So yeah, it's gonna be hard to get these videos out at the quality level that I am accustomed to putting them out in. So even this week's video is going to be kind of a dumbed down version of Week in Review. So gonna take a little bit of what we had last week, kind of compress it. There was not much this week, so it was kind of a good week to have taken a break. And then, yeah, hopefully next week we'll get back to somewhat normal weeks in review. So guys, let's jump into it. All right, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take a lot of the Star Citizen official content that has come out in the previous week, bundle it into one video, and insert my opinions. Also, I do live stream on Twitch every day but Monday to get this video out to you guys starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/SaltEMike. So we have a lot to get through, and we're going to start out with patch notes. So given that it was a 2-week block, there are quite a few. We're going to start out with PTU patch J. There was ROC DS changes, which I think is just a really poor attempt of making the ROC DS worth it, because in the current game it just makes no sense, and it just gives me vibes that they have bigger plans for mining than they're leading us on to at the moment, and this vehicle might be worth something at some point, but at the moment it just is that pointless. There's just no point to it. There was ASOP spawning changes for the P52 and probably the P72 as well. They basically changed the way you add it to your Connie, because there was an edge case that gives players red status that are in the Merlin when the Connie ship is claimed or despawns or whatever. So yeah, there's just some edge cases with something that you would think is so standard, but it's just not. So this is their temporary fix until they can get a permanent fix to that problem in the future. The PTUK patch, Port Olisar was enabled as a ship firing, like you can fire your weapons in a green zone, which is very similar to the other outposts around major landing zones in Star Citizen. So I think they really heard the PvPers on this one, and yeah, I think it kind of falls in line with the rest of the game, so good change. PTUK, or we just did K, PTUL was just a bunch of random bug fixes there, so nothing to really touch on. PTUM, same, a lot of bug fixes. Two that I really want to touch on: the 100 series can now be flown again, because throughout the PTU up to this point it just didn't work. And then ground vehicles can now be turned off and on with a keybind. If you've ever used a Greycat Rock, you know this pain, so that's a big change. And then PTUN was just more bugs smashed. 2 weeks ago, we had a roadmap update, and we're going to touch on some things here, but we're going to go over them kind of briefly. There were changes. They put in a search, they put in filters, they put in navigation between both roadmap types, the progress view and release view, which is pretty cool. So if you're looking at something in progress view, but it has a card on the release view, bang, you can click a link and get right there. I think it's really awesome. The search and filter function is amazing. It's great. It makes following the Star Citizen project a lot easier, and I think I'm going to be kind of focusing on the roadmap updates a lot more in these videos, because yeah, just the general gameplay of Star Citizen is not doing it anymore, or ever has, but the idea of that it is going to be somewhere soon is just a pipe dream. So following the roadmap and getting a sense of where we're going to be is probably the best place to go for Star Citizen, understanding Star Citizen at this point. There was content updates as well. So the physics team is basically temporary off the roadmap because their schedule is being reevaluated. I'm guessing our next update, which is the next week in review, we'll probably see them back on there, or the following one. Mission feature team has higher priorities, so they removed 4 items from the roadmap. The Grimhex racetrack, which has been pushed for eternity. Prisons V3, which I don't remember what that entails, but prisons definitely have their problems currently, so this is not something light that is coming off the roadmap. Dynamic population, also not really sure what that entails. And then Bounty Hunter V2 is one that I think we would really want to see in the game. So these are not light things that are coming off the roadmap here. My guess is the dynamic event is what's keeping us from getting this content. The USPU feature team, higher priorities. Again, I'm thinking that's the dynamic event, Ninetales Lockdown. The mission manager app is coming off. Grimhex Race, I guess they had some content that they needed to do there. Org perks and benefits. This was my top priority of all things that were on the roadmap coming in 2021. So that one is really difficult to see. What that means is if you do things for Crusader security, if you do things for Kovalex shipping hub, let's say, you get benefits from the game, things other than UEC. That is hard to see come off the roadmap. And notification system tier 0, that is one of the things. It's like, okay, whatever. Higher priorities that they are taking over are quite big though. Specifically selling. You're going to be able to sell things back to the vendors, but more importantly, it's creating a general loot system for the game where you might open a locker and find some stuff to sell back or use yourself. So I'll take that for sure. You can remove everything but the org perks and benefits and add selling, and I'd be happy. The other thing that they're going to be working on is persistent hangers and habs. I think these will help change the cargo mechanics, they said, so that's probably why these are being ranked and prioritized above other things. Although the actual act of persistent hangers and habs, I still find the org perks and benefits to be more of a priority for me personally. They also added 20 new teams to the roadmap, so you can use that filter and search option to find these. AI content team, AI tech and feature team, audio, character art and tech team, cinematics team, the EUPU gameplay feature team, that's the Dan Truffin team from ISC fame. Make sure you check out what they're working on. Facial animation team, the Fire Sprite team, that's Theaters of War, gameplay story, lighting team, location concept art, modular Montreal team, that's the Turbulent team that's been created, narrative, props, Squadron 42 feature team, tech animation, UI feature team, UI tech team, and VFX team. So lots of stuff there. Also, persistent streaming and server meshing is more robust on the roadmap now. They basically added more tasks to the roadmap instead of just like a general vague description of what server meshing is going to be, and the fact that it's just like straight across the board, they're always going to be working on it. Monthly report, we're going to kind of do the same thing here, where we're going to take just 4 items and touch on them, and the link will be in the description below. There are quite a few things to touch on in this monthly report, specifically in the AI feature section. Honestly, I'm really impressed with the AI progress that's gone on. I'm not going to show much of it or go through what they actually are doing, because honestly, if you play Star Citizen, we're not going to be playing Squadron 42 anytime soon. If you're the general Star Citizen player, you're not going to see the results of this work right now. Since the servers are so bad, it's unlikely we'll notice any positive changes from this work until we see those server improvements. So the positive here is that this really will, like reading it and looking over it, it looks like it's really pushing Squadron 42 progress forward, which is obviously a big bonus. Environment art, like wow, Crusader looks incredible, and it gives the vibe that I was hoping for Crusader, which was that Cloud City vibe. So the time that it's taken to get to this point and the wait really could be worth it here. So I'm pretty impressed. USPU feature team, those cargo changes that we touched on above seem to be underway, and they're clearly working on the Ninetales lockdown heavily. So this really kind of touches on the opinion that I had up top and sort of makes it fact that a lot of the reasons why we are having things fall out from the feature teams of Star Citizen is to work on a singular dynamic event. And I'll look back on Xenothreat and say the only thing that really came into the general Star Citizen game from Xenothreat was these delivery missions so far. So I really hope that the Ninetales lockdown has a more permanent stamp on the game Star Citizen in the future, because if it's not, I don't want these dynamic events anymore. I'd rather just work on general content for the game and building a more robust general content feature set in Star Citizen rather than dynamic events. Vehicle features, they're also working on making scanning more satisfying, and I assume these changes are going to come with the additional functionality that they shared on in previous sprint reports on ISC, which is where you can like target something specific. If you're hiding behind an asteroid, you are hidden most likely from those scans. Things like that should be coming with it. And then moving on to other updates, because we're really not going to touch on video updates this week because we're so far behind. I do expect an ISC coming this week, which we'll touch on week in review next week. So I'm hoping we're going to get a little bit more movement on the video front coming in the next couple weeks, because we should start seeing more of what's to come in 3.14, which is a lot more exciting looking patch than 3.13 ever was. So we had a sneak peek where the Redeemer is being shown here, and then the big one, a really big deal here, is the German studio is moving, and they signed a 10-year lease. So this really shows CIG's intention to keep going and keep the franchise progressing forward in whatever they are doing. Buyback tokens are also available. If you don't know, this allows you to use store credit to buy back ships that you've returned for store credit. And you can use those once a quarter. Lore Makers community questions. I thought this was a really good idea for the lore team to do. Instead of just throwing out old lore like they do sometimes, this allows the community to ask questions of the lore team and them to answer it. And lastly, CitizenCon. It's happening this year, but it's virtual only. So we still don't have our CitizenCon LA date, probably 2022, but we'll have to see next year for that one. This year's is going to be on October 9th. It's going to be all digital on Twitch, and they are definitely hinting at showing Pyro. I think they hint at this is going to be out of this world and out of this system, and it's like, we've already left the system, so now it's time to show that system, right? Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Pyro, and who knows, hopefully what CitizenCon tends to be is the big push in tech. And if that big push in tech is somehow getting us from one system to another system, that is a huge win. That is my hope and dream for the year, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. So, all right, guys, that'll do it for this week's video. Again, sorry for the kind of lower bar that I'm setting right now, but it just has to happen, and we'll get back to more regular weeks in review, hopefully in the near future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.